Welcome to the Supplement Engineer podcast. My name is Robert Janetsky. Joining me as always for our weekly banter is the morally questionable Justin Hall of Supplement
Morally,
Snoop.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, you don't have to just put it out there like that. Morally questionable? What did I do? What did I do? I mean, it's not like a new revelation.
No, it's not. I don't really write a script for these introductions anymore. After 100 episodes, I've kind of got the hang of what to say. And just before we hopped on the call, I just thought it's something funny I could do last week because I had the alliterative opening last week of fabulous, fresh, and frisky, and all that stuff. And I thought,
Mm.
what's something else that I could do this week? And I thought, let's just say he's morally questionable without having any kind of backing in it. I mean, our industry is full of unbacked claims and non-research backed claims. So I figured, why not just throw some more questionable topics into the fray by calling you morally questionable.
Absolutely. I think I mean, it's totally valid. Like,
Right, yeah.
I think a lot of people would be like, oh, Justin, he's a nice guy. Not really.
I mean, I polled 8 people, and 230% of them said that you were morally questionable. So
230%. That sounds like, and you pulled 8 people. Wow. Very well done, man. I like that. That's a creative way to take a shot.
it
And
is, yeah. We gave them 50 microseconds to answer the question, and that was it.
That's nice, man. Well done. Shit, we might as well wrap up the podcast now because it ain't gonna get any better than that.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. We will see you next week.
Well done. Okay. On that note, shit, I better step up.
All right, my friend. So, what's new in the world of Snoop?
Got a lot of stuff. So last week, did I talk about the new? Actually, let's get some things. I'll cover some so I don't forget them. So, Nutrabio. Did I talk about the chocolate peanut butter one last week?
Yeah, their Muscle Matrix one, the blend of the 50/50. Yeah.
Really good. More like peanut flavor than peanut butter. I think we talked about that. So I got the cookies and cream one yesterday. The cookies and cream Dream Muscle Matrix, and that's a good one.
Is it better than the isolate cookies and cream that they released last year?
For me, 1,000,000% better.
Okay.
I didn't really like, and I don't want to say I didn't like the isolate, but like I love cookies and cream flavor. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of those, when you have a personal affinity for a certain flavor.
Yeah.
Or it's like the peanut butter and jelly thing. We talked about before. It's like, okay, if you want to go down that route, you got to bring something pretty legit to the table if you're gonna go at an institution like peanut butter jelly or cookies and cream. So Muscle Matrix, not surprising enough. It's just another one of those reasons why you and I are like, stop at the isolate shit, because not only is there really no difference, but you can actually make it taste better, especially texture-wise too, by using the Muscle Matrix. So
Correct.
And as always, having the whole thing broken down, it's almost a 50-50. So it's sort of in the Apollon. Apollon is dead smack 50-50.
Yeah.
And Nutrabio's is about 55-45 probably. I think it's like 16-13.
Yeah, I think it's in that ballpark. It's the 55-45 or 60-40, something like that.
Yep. Anyway, that was a good one. They did a really good job with that one. That protein. So my wife, I don't know if I told you this story. So, that a few weeks back I did a live with Dana from Devotion Nutrition. Yeah. So my wife watched it and she was like, "Oh, well, I want to try, all their stuff." I'm like, "We have 1,000 proteins here."
Well.
So she bought the protein from there, and that's the one I think we talked about. It's like 80% isolate and 20% casein.
Right. Yeah, so it's the inverse of the actual naturally occurring ratio of the milk proteins in it. Yeah.
Yep, because there's the 80-20 build fast formula.
Yeah.
That's the 80 casein, 20 isolate. So, got the Devotion Nutrition one. I know we talked about Devotion on here a lot, but that stuff's good. Their protein's good. And then there's the flex flavors because they have it where their 2 protein flavors are like the vanilla. Well, it's like angel food cake and brownie batter, which are good on their own, but then you can mix the different flavors in there with them. And it's a cool concept, but we've hit on it lots of times. But we got that in.
I wonder why more companies don't do that, is one thing I'm curious about.
I know that, when I talk to her, that's like their background. Their family, they have like a family connection with flavoring, like some kind of flavoring house or something like that. Yeah. So That's how that got started. A cool concept. I love the concept. The protein's really good. We'll see if they, and you know how we talk about it a lot, where protein's not a great margin game for a lot of supplement companies, but it seems like if you just tackle one or the other, sometimes you're better off. You can tackle protein,
Yeah.
if you just stick to that. Like she's not making pre-workouts or amino acids or anything like that, but so stick to one concept, because then it seems like the brands that are bringing on proteins. I was talking to Danny from Insight earlier today when we were talking about Performax, which I know is a brand that you really like. And he's like, for some reason, the formulas are great, but he was like, they just don't do well. And we were kind of having a talk about that whole thing. And like we have talked about before, them coming out with a protein powder, I was like, well, I don't want to speak about a brand's practices, not talking to them, but I'm like, if you're having trouble selling the products that you already make that are great formulas, I don't know that I would release a protein powder to try to solve that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially they added some stuff to it's like
they added Velocitol to it and digestive enzyme blend. I think it's called Digizyme or Digestimax. Yeah. Digestimax, that's what it is.
Anyway, so we were talking about that. I know that's a brand that you really like.
Yeah. Which I just got their Pink Star Blast flavor of Hypermax in because I killed off my tub of Rocket Pop finally. And so Aaron and the guys over there were nice enough to shoot us over a Pink Starburst tub so we could get a review up on the channel for it. Because I've been wanting to try it. It's been out for, I want to say, like 6 months now or something like that.
Yeah, that's an awesome pre-workout.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm curious to do the flavor. We haven't tasted it yet. But they just released an Immunity Max formula. They released the formula on Stack 3D, I think, earlier this week. And I think the product's supposed to land next week or the following week. But yeah, that's what we were... Going back to what your question is, I know when I had Aaron on the podcast, he said that they released it because I think part of it was a personal thing. Like he wanted his a protein powder that they made and he wanted to use for himself, so he wouldn't always have to outsource it. But also, I think consumers were also saying, hey, if we're already buying our either nootropic or pre-workout or aminos from you, why not offer them an option that maybe we can get a decent pricing on from our manufacturer. And that way it's a one-stop shop. They don't have to go and outsource it or something. So
yeah, it's just, to me, it's like the part of that I would want to know, although I guess none of my business. But like I said, if you make a killer pre-workout and things like that, and some of your products are great formulas and they're not moving, there's got to be something else going on there.
Yeah.
But whatever, not my business.
Yeah, I mean, they may not have the marketing budget or something like that. I don't know. I'm not...
Right,
you and I interact with a lot of companies, but we're not privy to the behind-the-scenes financials and all of that stuff. So all we can really do is postulate and hypothesize and wildly speculate.
Right, which is my thing. It's like, well, if you don't have a marketing budget, so you're gonna get into protein, which is
expensive. Yeah.
Anyway, so we were talking about Performax because it is a killer company. I do really like what they do. It's always been one of those head scratchers for me. Why it doesn't catch on with people more. But moving on, did we talk about the arms race products? I think I got those at the end of the week last week.
Yeah, we did not. I don't think we touched on those. You mentioned that you had the core pump, but we did not discuss the new arms race one.
So one of it's simple formula, but one of the cooler formulas that I was like, oh, as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I like this one. So arms race, they've almost been synonymous together. Every time you mention there are these two new products, Stabilize and Clarity are their two new ones.
Yeah.
And so they sent me those. This Stabilize formula is the one that caught my attention because
it's the GDA one, or is that more like a cortisol regulation hormone thing?
So that would be the tough part. I would say the only difficulty with this is it's a really cool formula. It's almost like does a lot of things where it can be marketed in a lot of ways, which sometimes that can be difficult, I think, for people maybe to figure out how to use it. But so I'll tell you the formula. It's 2.1 grams of Lipidamax, the maca root that I am a firm, pun intended, firm believer in. So 2.1 grams of that. It's 1.2 grams of berberine HCl. um, 200 milligrams of DIM, and 120 milligrams of the Shodan ashwagandha, so what really intrigued me was not only did I see the formula, I was like, that's cool, but I had been using Lipidemax and I was like, it's impressive.
Yeah.
And the Shodan is the one that was in Klaxon's Serenity.
Right.
And that is very intriguing. So you've got, the Lipidemax doing its thing. You have the, because the 35% with analytes, I don't know that much about Shodan, just knowing what we know about analytes and stuff like that. You're going to get, you got the DIM in there. So you got the DIM and the ashwagandha, sort of the hormone balance there.
Right.
And then you add in berberine for the glucose control and all the cool things that berberine can do. But it's a really cool collection of ingredients. It's only 4 ingredients, but big dosages. That's a lot of DIM.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was really that formula that caught my attention, especially as much as I've been enjoying the Lipidemax and Shodan in other products.
Yeah.
So these are kind of some, I would say, some hot new ingredients mixed in with something like berberine that we know a lot about. So that's a cool one, especially for GNC. I can't imagine that GNC is going to offer anything quite like that.
No, not in this ballpark, or even if they do, it's not at these dosages. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the berberine at that, I'm almost surprised that there's not a recommendation to take it. Okay, never mind. It says it's got the divided dosing on the direction.
Split it, yeah.
3 capsules at morning meal and 2 capsules at afternoon meal. All right, that's smart considering how big of a dosage of berberine that is. It doesn't say to take all 5 caps at once, so that's smart.
Yep.
And taking it with meal, you're assuming you're going to have some kind of carbohydrates in there, be it from fruit, vegetables, or something like grains or something like that, which is smart.
And probably the same when it comes to DIM and Shodan, because taking a lot of the only time I've used Shodan at that dose is in Serenity, and granted there's other things in Serenity, but it is very strong. Serenity is a very strong product, and so to split this up, but like you said, because I think berberine, the studies was like 500 milligrams or so, split up amongst 3 dosages a day, I think was one of the things. So you want, and then what I like about that too is then I can still keep berberine a little bit away from my workouts, whether that's a big deal or not, I'm not sure, but it allows me to sort of use it in different places. So, and then the maca root, you can take split up too. So, yeah, I like that product a lot. As soon as I saw the formula, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I remember when it got announced. I didn't remember what the formula is, but I do like that a lot. And he brought up Shodan and Glaxon with the Serenity. I was talking to Joey 2 days ago, and he said that even just, as we've used it a couple of times now. I've given Sandy a few servings of Serenity because this is like the second to last week of school, and she's about at wit's end with the students and the minutiae of parent politics and being dean and all that stuff. And Joey was saying, man, that stuff is super powerful. I said, yeah, we're really enjoying it. He says, I take one in the morning, and he's just good for the rest of the day. So, I mean, it's a potent thing. And if people are, having some issues with stress, if you're looking for something a little bit more, I guess, not advanced, but something just a little bit different than your typical KSM theanine stack or something, give that a shot.
Yeah, and so it's funny. Did we talk about me using it at night last week?
Yes, a little bit.
It was just so I was using 4 caps at night, for bed. Dude, it's just too strong. Way too strong. Like the next day, I said I would get up and I was fine. I wasn't like groggy or tired. I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, whatever. I'm like, man, I really have a lot to do today. I'm like, nah.
Whatever.
I was like, oh shit, I can't do this. So I've actually been trying 1 cap of it at a time, and it's still noticeable.
Yeah.
So
you took 4 caps, and the serving is 3 caps. So you did 1 extra just for good measure.
Just for shits and giggles, just experimenting. So what I would do is, the first couple times I did that, it was from conversations with them too, like some experimenting we were doing, sort of testing the boundaries of it. I eat a lot at night. Usually anyway too, so I was taking 2 caps around, say, 8, 9 o'clock at night, like pre-bed sort of. But then I would take 2 more with like sedative, a few hours later, which it works. You will fall asleep and you will fall asleep and you will stay asleep. But just don't do it I always tell people don't, because I probably woke up with no cortisol in my body. Because like I woke up and I was like, well, I'll just stay here. Like, why get out of bed? I don't care. So I was still very, very serene. It wasn't like sedative or, that groggy, like hungover feeling. It was just like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what there is to do. No big deal. So, but I've been using with just one cap too. Just try it out. I took sedative last night with one cap, and I woke up this morning and felt pretty good. Yeah. But it's noticeable. Even one cap of that Serenity is noticeable for me.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to go through and look at the ingredient line, but see what's some of the half-life of the ingredients. So it just 1 or 2 of them have a really long half-life to where it's just kind of hanging out in your body, longer than 6 or 8 hours. That's giving you that prolonged kind of just chill feeling.
Yep. Yeah, because it does, or for me anyway. So, but that was one thing. So, was there more? Did you want to say more about Serenity?
No, I'm tempted to do the full serving at night, but we just moved the halfling into a regular size bed, and she's kind of figured out now that she can get out of bed and go mosey around if she wakes up in the middle of the night. So at this point, it's because she wants to get up and go color or read. And so I hear the door open, and I'll hear something. And I'll say, "It's dark outside." Move her back in, and then So last night was the first night since she figured out she could climb out of her bed that she didn't actually come out of her room at all. So that I think once we get into like a solid week groove, and she's a good sleeper anyway. But I'm gonna, before I take like a super knockout sleep aid, I don't want to wake up half fucked up and say, all right, let's try and figure out what's going on. So.
Like the kid, like literally, if I would have woke up the other day after the 4 caps, if the kid was walking down the street, middle of the street, I'm like, they'll be fine. Yeah. Like someone will stop and pick her up and bring her back, and everything will be fine. Like that's how you feel. So
yeah,
it works. Whether that's exactly what you want or not, it always goes back to what's the best for you. That is not the best idea for me, although it does work very well. So, but that's the other thing too, is I think we talk about. A lot of people just really have debilitating stress. I don't really have that.
Yeah.
So it's a little different for me anyway. So some people just gotta have to experiment with it.
Yeah, titrate the dosing to find out what's the sweet spot for you. And I guess it depends on how much sleep you've had, what else is going on in your life, relationship status, work status.
All right.
Nonsense of what else is going on in the world and all of that. So, yeah.
So the other product, the Arms Race Tandem, is Clarity, which I'm curious to get your thoughts about. Clarity being the nootropic, because this one is not like nootropics that you see. First of all, there's no caffeine in it. There's no stimulants, where it seems like somewhere along the lines we're like, well, screw it, we're just gonna still put a lot of stimulants in these, where I think exactly like what the tagline says on here, it says brain health support. So it's like, because there's another product that I got this week too that we can talk about, but they're along similar, I think.
I like it. It's let's see, we got 900 milligrams of St. John's wort, 600 milligrams of ginkgo biloba, 500 of mucuna pruriens, standardized to 50% L-Dopa, 400 milligrams of Bacopa to 50% bacicides, which is a nice dose of that. 200 of theanine, 200 of valerian extract, and 100 of neurofactor. Now, I love neurofactor. I'm assuming in addition to, the brain health support, I think they're also assuming that you're taking either a cup of coffee in the morning when you wake up, or you're training early in the morning. You've already got a pre-workout in your system to where you want to be able to take a nootropic and also have, be able to stack that and not have too much caffeine or get so amped up or anything. Overall, I like it because there's some cumulative ingredients in there. So you get the acute effects from neurofactor, but I believe there's also some cumulative data behind it. I'd need to go and check again. Mucuna is always good for mood enhancement. Bacopa is great for memory enhancement and cognitive function. theanine if, that's depending on, do you need that much theanine, do you not? I mean, in a nootropic setting, I'm fine with a 200 milligram dose. That doesn't bother me at all. Ginkgo biloba, that's kind of, one of the OGs of nootropics. That people have been taking that for centuries, and that was popular even before everybody hopped on the nootropic bandwagon. I remember Sandy's dad was taking it even really before I jumped into the supplement industry. Yep. He's been taking that forever, and then St. John's wort. The thing I am most associated with is that it's used for mood enhancement. Especially, a lot of women will use that when it hits that certain time of the month, and they're trying to make themselves feel a little bit more chipper and not feel as pissed off. So yeah, all in all, I like the formula a lot. It's a different riff on the typical nootropics that we see. Have you used it yet? And if so, oh, and also one other thing for the listeners that may not have the label in front of them, it's divided dosing, just like Stabilized was. So it's 2 caps twice per day on an empty stomach.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of, because I had a couple other of nootropic products that I've been using, so I have not gone into this one much. But what I was thinking about doing, I was actually talking to Kenton about these products.
Yeah.
Because he asked me, for some feedback, and we were discussing like how I was using Stabilize, because I think that's one of the cool things about Stabilize is it's like, well, you can kind of use them in different spots and, splitting up dosing. So same kind of thing as with Clarity. I said, I kind of like to use 2 caps before bed. Some of these things can be associated with being energizing, but at the same time, like, I think Neurofactor before bed is kind of cool. But then also, if you have like Bacopa for memory creation, memory formation,
consolidation all happens when you get into your REM sleep.
Right. So combining that with some theanine, before bed, something like that, I think that's pretty cool. So I was going to try taking Clarity, but also I had been experimenting with a lot of weird shit at night already anyway. So I'm like, do I want to add some more weird shit? Like, how much weird shit can I stack in before bed? So that's what I was going to do is take 2 caps of this. Because my day is sort of a little bit later than most people. Like I probably wouldn't get up in the morning and take 2 caps of this, and maybe like more afternoonish, maybe post-workout sort of area, but then take maybe like 2 caps before I go to sleep.
Yeah, that would be, I think the 2 cap dose at bedtime, because I mean, valerian is typically found in sleep aids, theanine is, Mucuna is found in a few different sleep aids. My only concern would maybe be Neurofactor, just because whenever I take it, and maybe it's hitting that dosage threshold to where that 100 milligram dose is where you get that that excitation of the neurons, and because the increase of BDNF and all of that. Maybe if you're doing a divided dosing, it's a little bit more subtle and it won't be as arousal provoking at nighttime.
Yep. Yeah, and that was right. That was my thought too. And this is also a personal thing too, is where if I take 50 milligrams of caffeine, well, even if it's not caffeine, 50 milligrams, but I think that's why I was just going to test it out. I was going to pick a night, maybe there's, a little bit easier morning the next morning or something like that, just in case. But I wanted to try to see that. I think that kind of what is Neurofactor's caffeine percentage? Very low, like 6% or something like that.
4% maybe.
4%.
Yeah, I mean,
you're the one that wrote the
super duper low
17,000 word article about it.
Let me pull it up and see. I don't remember. I mean, it's been, I want to say, at least 2 years since I've wrote that one, and there hasn't really been much new research on it since.
Yeah, so I figure at half a dose of this, from that percentage, that the caffeine, any little bit of caffeine, for me personally, is not going to do anything.
Okay, here we go. Neurofactor is 0.7% caffeine.
0.7, so nothing negligible, even at 100. But You're right, though. I think Neurofactor, for me, is an energizing feel type of ingredient from when I've used it. But I also don't know, because, a lot of this stuff for me, maybe like tyrosine could be an example. It's kind of like a use case thing where if I'm getting ready to go do stuff, it can be energizing. But then sometimes, like maybe if you're winding down, it can be, you know what I mean? It's kind of, it's just something I want to tinker around with this one, because I think this is a cool formula, especially with the split dosing. Especially because it's like, well, valerian's calming, theanine's calming, Bacopa you see in sleep aids. It's like, is Neurofactor going to tip the scales?
Right.
It's not like I'm just taking Neurofactor,
Right.
before bed. You have these other things that are sort of, and then Lord knows I'll probably take like sedative or something with it. And
Or a heaping scoop of Phenibut, just bulk powder or something.
which, well, because I was talking about this earlier too. So I did make an order. Um, I don't know how much, we can directly talk about it, but there was a very popular sleep aid that was off the market
Mm-hmm.
that has made a small short run comeback that may or may not have some phenibut in it that I may or may not have picked up quite a bit. Although you don't know if it has phenibut in it because the website doesn't list the formula, because probably not a good idea. But anyway, um, there is there's a lot of people on the Supplement Snoop group that pick some up. That we actually took a running tally on it the other day, and it was like 24 tubs or something like that, I think.
Y'all responsible for half the stock that just got purchased.
Exactly.
That got run.
Yep. So, yeah, I was really curious to hear your take on clarity, because exactly what you were saying too. St. John's Wort and ginkgo. You know how we like see these. I feel like ginseng's kind of part of that equation too, where
Yeah.
they came out and they're synonymous with this stuff for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then it's like people watered it down so much
Right.
that suddenly it became sort of a punchline, and there was all
Right.
this other new stuff, and now we're sort of circling back
Yeah.
to good dosages of these old school ingredients, which is kind of
Right.
cool because Arms Race has the old school, kind of thing with it. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
I mean, I'm going to blame energy drinks in part for doing some of that, because they pixie dusted in ginseng and ginkgo biloba and all of those things in that giant, 48 ingredient prop blend that every energy drink has. So I would say that's part of the reason, and probably Dr. Oz also had a part in that too, because he hyped the shit out of every single ingredient that he ever came across.
Right.
And then he says, "Well, I'm not really selling anything, but I mean, you're just as guilty as the people that are selling the watered down shit, because you're broadcasting your nonsense to millions of people every day."
This is true. We should have him on the podcast sometime and call him out on some shit.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. See, I try to make the podcast mostly positive, especially when I'm having a guest on there. And this is something I've had discussions with, I think, you on this off air, and a few other people. I know I've done it with Moody and Robbie at Apollon and a couple of other people, that there's a very fine line to walk when you're interviewing a guest or having a discussion with somebody, and that
Oh yeah.
you might say something and their response, you either know for a fact is just incorrect based on what you've read in the literature, or based on just kind of your desk research that you've done, or from your own personal experience, or they're hyping a lot of bro science. And I'm just thinking, you invited them, you invited them to be a guest on your podcast. So
Right.
at what point do you say, you're wrong there, or is there a tactful way, or do you just let them make their point and you kind of steer the conversation in a different direction? Because you don't want to come across as an asshole, or that you're trying to bait them into saying something just so you can do gotcha. You don't want to see that. I mean, that's bush league shit right there. But then again,
Yeah.
that's why I don't really have any kind of charlatans on the show that are going to be hawking snake oil.
Right.
At least I hope I don't.
Yeah, and it's kind of a fine line, because there's not a whole lot of things that someone, especially if you're versed in the supplement industry, you can say a lot without saying much.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can make a lot of claims because there's so many things that just are up to interpretation. So if you're not directly, refuting some science, and we don't even have that much science in a lot of this stuff anyway. Right. So it's like you can really push those limits. So what are you supposed to say? You're supposed to call out somebody but then what if more research comes out, down the road that proves that they were right and you were wrong? And it's like, it gets to be, that's why I like every conversation or debate in this industry, like, usually doesn't get anywhere, because you can find a way to make your argument work.
Right.
And, it's really hard to prove something like dead flat wrong in this space, because there's just not a lot of concrete data out there. So
Yeah. I mean, one of the only instances, I mean, that I guess I wasn't even tempted to correct him or something, but I think it was when Chris Gethin was on. He said, "Yeah, I go and do my fasted training in the morning, and I'm sipping on 2 scoops of BCAAs," and I wanted to say, well, technically, BCAAs are breaking the fast because they generate an insulin spike, but I mean, it's a very minimal one compared to something like whey protein or white bread or something like that. So, but I mean, is that harming anybody? Is he, if he wants to think it's keeping him in a state, and plus, if you're burning enough energy at the time, you could also say that it's really not going to create any kind of spike in insulin. But so it's just kind of one of those. That's really the only thing I think that's been obvious to the listeners, probably, that it has been a slip up, or saying glutamine's amazing or something like that.
Well, and sometimes too, it's like if someone I've noticed just unless someone like if someone were to ask you that it was a guest, like Robert, what do you think about me drinking BCAAs in the morning? Do you think that breaks my fast? Whereas if someone already has it in their head that what they're doing is perfectly fine and that's part of their routine, it's really hard to convince someone otherwise.
Right.
that, so why even fucking bother? Because it's exhausting at that point anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
I agree. Sort of just that's what I do a lot is like when we're doing podcasts or it's like all the crazy shit you say all the time. Like I just let you say it. I mean, I'm not going to call you out on it. I just let the listeners, hear you and go, oh man. I'm just like, yeah, keep going, man. But no, for real, like you just sort of let people talk and then let people, you know, sort of make their own conclusions because there's a lot out there.
Right. And if they're irritated, if the listeners are irritated enough, or get their jimmies in a twist about something that a podcast guest or one of us said, hopefully they will feel comfortable enough reaching out to us and saying, hey, why did you say that? Or I disagree with you. I mean, fortunately, I haven't had anything to the point where I've gotten a very angry email or direct message from a listener, from a regular listener, saying that, hey, I listened to this episode and you were way off the rails on this. I mean, I've gotten angry emails about other things regarding, but no regular listeners have ever said, well, what you said here, I don't agree with. So, or usually it's very cordial and level-headed. 99% of my interactions with people.
I don't get very much, and even, a lot of people don't like what we do with the app because they don't really understand what we do, which is whatever. I got an email last night from someone. It was ironic timing too, because yesterday just happened to be like a day where, for some reason, everyone was talking very positive about what we're doing. And there's a lot of, I get this email last night from this person, and they actually tracked down my personal email address. Like they were so upset they were so mad at me that they tracked down my personal email address. And I can't remember the exact wording, but just talking about how greedy I was. And it was just like kind of funny to me because I'm like, man, I can be called a lot of things. But literally, like, greedy is not something I would ever accept. And if you were ever to meet me and talk to me, it's really the opposite. But it's like one of those reminders of why I don't give a fuck, like what people out there think. Because if you don't know me, you don't talk to me. But you sometimes think about it, it's like, well, what am I doing that would possibly make someone think that I would? But then at the same time, you see here, you're just like, man, what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with someone that just that will go to those lengths to tell you like how greedy you are when literally 24 hours a day, your day is literally all about other people and how you. So you're just like, well, what am I going to say? It's like telling somebody that loves BCAAs in the morning because it doesn't break their fast that they're wrong. So.
Right. And is it doing them any harm? No. I mean, yeah.
So I'm like, hey man, do your thing. It's all good.
Precisely, my man. So, yeah. What other goodies did you get this week?
So one of the reasons why I have not been using Clarity, I finally got my shipment of Enhance from
Neuratech.
Neuratech.
Yep.
And I know that you got some experience with that too. So
yeah, I did. Well, mine was the beta formula. It's not the final one. So I have yet to try the final form, because the original form, if I remember correctly, had uridine monophosphate in it, and a couple of other things. One of the reasons I liked it is that it didn't have any caffeine in it.
Yeah,
But it
still
did
does.
have actiolin, which is kind of it's a different take on huperzine. So it's a different mechanism of action than, or I'm sorry, different ingredient, but targets the same mechanism of action as huperzine does. So it's an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. It's just a
Yeah.
different plant extract that's doing it. But I really liked it. It had Bacopa in it. It had CDP choline, which the more and more I experiment with nootropics and just pre-workouts in general, the more and more I'm just going in the tank for CDP choline as my personal one. I'm not going to say it's the best for everybody, but the way I respond to it in damn near every nootropic formula I've tried, and even on its own, I
Hmm.
respond so much better to that one than Alpha GPC. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So do you have the enhanced the current formula pulled up?
Yes, I
Because
do. Yeah.
I would like to get your take on the formula, and then I can weigh in afterwards.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there, directions of use: take 2 capsules with food daily. We recommend a 5 on 2 off usage split for the enhanced nootropic. So we've got 500 milligrams of lion's mane mushroom 10-to-1 extract, 300 milligrams of Synapsa Bacopa. So in addition to Bacignize, Synapsa is one of those other kind of premium leading forms of Bacopa that's got a ton of studies behind it. 300 milligrams of CDP choline. Love that dosage. 200 milligrams of actiolin, which we just covered as a huperzine like ingredient that inhibits acetylcholinesterase. 100 milligrams of neurofactor. Again, love that ingredient. 100 milligrams phosphatidylserine as sharp PS from soy lecithin. 10 milligrams of cell charge, which is a fulvic acid mineral. 10 milligrams of bioperin. And then you got a whole B complex of B6, B5, B3, and B12. So all in all, I really like it. The fact that it doesn't have theanine is a win for me. The fact that it doesn't have
Yes.
caffeine in it makes it highly versatile and stackable to where you can take it any time of day. There's plenty of stuff in here to give you a boost, even if you don't like caffeine or don't need caffeine, to where your brain's going, because you've got the lion's mane and the dual-headed monster of lion's mane and neurofactor, which kind of gives you the nerve growth factor and the BDNF boosting properties. You got CDP choline, which also has kind of an ATP enhancing and neural charging effect, or at least for personal experience for me. Yeah, it's
Is
a
that?
dynamite formula.
Yeah, it really is. And I tell you what, this is a very switched on feeling. I mean, so the first day I took this, and I mean, I take nootropics all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I took 2 caps of this the other morning, and I was like, holy shit! Like, quickly was like, whoa, this is legit. And for not being no stimulants or anything like in there, it's very. But you're right. I love alpha GPC in what it does, but it's it's CDP choline to me is it's just so much different feeling.
Yeah.
It's just on a different level as far as
Yeah.
if you need to. It's a much more a get shit done choline source than alpha GPC, I think. But one question, because phosphatidylserine is a really interesting ingredient on here. I don't know if this sharp PS, because like Serenade is the one we always see. It's always 50%. So I didn't know what actual dose of phosphatidylserine is in here. If it's actually, I'm guessing it's actually 100 milligrams. These guys do a pretty good job of listing everything. So I'm going to take it as there's 100 milligrams. And there was something because I got into this really like, that's why I don't go online and argue about this stuff. But I was tagged in something the other day about phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is one of these ingredients that there is a list of studied dosages that ranges like I think I saw one that was like 60 milligrams all the way up to like 800 milligrams
Yeah,
where
that's
they
one
were
we usually see.
they were finding at least some benefits from it. So it's kind of one of those ingredients where you don't go you don't want to clearly this is not a formula that's out to underdose, right?
Right.
So you sort of take it as an entire picture, but having 100 milligrams there, I do remember seeing some good stuff at around 100 milligrams, even though to really get the cortisol effects
Yeah.
was like 800 milligrams.
Yeah, and
But
that's a
that,
good point because they've got some literature on the Sharp PS website, and it's kind of a mini review of all the phosphatidylserine studies that have been done, and just quickly glancing through it. It says double-blind placebo-controlled study tested the effects of phosphatidylserine on golf performance. 20 healthy adults, mean average age of 32 years old, received daily supply of nutrition bar containing 200 milligrams of phosphatidylserine or placebo nutrition bar for 42 days. Perceived stress, heart rate, and quality of ball flights were hit. So how accurately and well did they strike the golf ball?
Interesting.
Said the perception of stress in the phosphatidylserine group, so receiving only a yield of 200 milligrams a day, led to improvements. Did not reach significance. The number of golf ball flights was significantly increased in the phosphatidylserine group, but not in the placebo group. So we've got some sports performance benefit at very low dosages. So yeah, that bounces off what you said. The 750 to 800 milligrams per day is more crushing the cortisol, and the lower doses might help with muscle soreness and or performance.
Yeah, I saw something that was like 60 milligrams because it was within this really like stupid debate with a company, and I won't call them out because they're actually like a really, really solid company. They actually weren't coming at me in any way, shape, or form. They were coming at another product for like underdosing phosphatidylserine, and I was like, they're not underdosing it phosphatidylserine. It's just different.
Yeah.
That's where there is a lot of times, and I get it. It's good to be aware in this industry where companies are always going to. But I think Glaxon's a good example of a company. They're like, hey, what's the benefit here of going up? Like, is it really worth like? But we can get this same effect at a certain dose. So I don't know. So sometimes it's just like you're arguing about nothing because it's like, well, this product's trying to do one thing and this product's trying to do another thing. It's like,
Right.
it's like arguing maybe ashwagandha forms. It's like, well, even though Shodan is 35% with analytes, does that mean it's better than KSM, which is 5%? Well, what are you using for? And does it mean it's 7 times better? No, of course not.
Correct.
Just for what, maybe an intended purpose, that comes into play. So it's just kind of one of where we go round and fucking round and don't get to an answer. So it's like, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and I just combing through. They do have a study using the 100 milligram dosage. It's a 2010 study. I'm just looking at the abstract here. I need to pull up the full study to really get into it. It says 100 milligrams a day improved cognitive function even after 3 months, even 3 months after the study termination. So even after they stopped taking phosphatidylserine, 3 months later they still had improved cognitive function over the people that were taking a placebo. So that's at least one study verifying the 100 milligram dose. And there's not even using the Sharp PS form, but using other forms of phosphatidylserine. We know it's one of those very heavily studied nootropics. It's not one of the ones that only has data in lab rats or we only have cell culture studies of. So it's an interesting ingredient and it's an expensive one. And it's hard to find a good quality one.
And that's kind of the thing too, is you can see they're not. There's nothing. These guys worked on this product for a long time.
Yep.
As you know, because I think we both tried that beta sample. Dude, that was like last summer.
June of last summer, yeah.
Right? So, man, like time flies. So anyway, what I've noticed with this one is, said very, very noticeable switch on kind of effects.
Yeah.
Which is, you got some good stuff with the B complex, which is good. I think the only one that I don't know a lot about is the cell charge fulvic mineral, which we see fulvic acid. Why am I drawing a blank? Maybe I need to take some of this stuff, but I'm drawing a blank of what we see fulvic acid. We see an ingredient standardized for fulvic acid a lot lately, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it is.
I think it just supports the energy production process, ATP production.
What I was going to say is that I know it's a performance ingredient too, that they were using fulvic acid for ATP. But as we know, fulvic acid, ATP for the brain is important too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, Anyway, it's a cool product, a very cool product. Our friends from down under Australia were nice enough to send me one, and it took a very long time to get here, but I much appreciate them. They are um, part of the Supplement Snoop group. They subscribe to the app. They part of what we do, and came out with a really cool product. And they actually got when I talked about it on my stories, even we'll have to get, we'll have to get our weekly plug in. But even Ben, Morphogen Ben,
Mm-hmm.
when he saw the formula, he actually responded to my story. He's like, "Damn, that's a cool product." He's like, "I really like to see stuff like that." So
Yeah.
if the guys from Neuratech are listening, you got a big shout out from one of the most respected formulators in our industry.
Yeah. And speaking of Morphogen Ben, we'll give him a little extra plug here
No,
that they just released
vegan protein.
their
Right?
vegan protein, which it's supposed to simulate the. Well, before we move on to that, one last thing I want to say about Neuratech. I'm curious as to why they recommend the 5-2 off. I mean, I guess it's good to always cycle off
Yeah.
certain products, but we know certain things go better with daily repeated dosing, like Bacopa and lion's mane. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, would it just delay the onset of the saturation-based effects of the Bacopa and the memory enhancement? Does it not? It's 2 days off after taking it 5 days straight. Yeah, I would recommend that for something like Huperzine, which has a really long half-life. Some of the other ones, I'm not sure. Is it going to harm you taking 2 days off? No. It's interesting.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I don't think that I will take their recommendation. I think I'm just gonna take it every day. So
That works.
that's a me thing though.
Yeah. So back to Morphogen Ben and Vegagen. He got it to simulate the amino profile of their regular protein powder, their whey fuel one.
Pretty cool.
What are your thoughts on it?
Is there a stacked article? I know there is, I feel like, but I can't find it.
There was one, it says Morphogen's vegan protein will have a more complete whey-like EAA profile. It was from 3 days ago.
3 days ago.
But I thought I saw an actual breakdown of it somewhere. Maybe it's actually on Ben's page.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Morphogen,
Yeah, it's on his actual page.
I actually picked up some Nutrigen for my mom for Mother's Day.
How nice of you.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, and I actually reached out to Ben. And I was like, this is just, and like I'm friends with Ben, and he's a great guy. But in all seriousness, like if when we know things that we would give to our family, I think that's the ultimate compliment that you can give a brand owner. That, man, I trust what you do so much that I would give it to my parents. So, my dad's always, he's like, my parents, I do the same thing to my parents I do to everybody else. What's the best test booster, Justin? I'm like, I'm not in this. There is no such thing, Dad.
Yeah.
So, we talked about some certain things, and my mom was looking for a greens product, and she was taking some shitty QVC greens product. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I can't let this happen. I can't allow this any longer.
Well, that's good. At least your parents and your family rely on your supplement expertise. I've got family members that are in the healthcare industry. My sister's a pharmacist. My mom's a cardiac rehab nurse, or retired or part-time now. She's mostly retired. But yeah, they I think they are supportive of what I'm doing, but I don't think they will ever try a supplement or take my advice on something to try. There's always that skeptical look of, I'm glad you're doing well with work, but I don't think I'm ever going to try something unless it's a protein powder. I just got my sister switched on to mixing some protein powder in her coffee, so I gave her a few different ones to try out, and she went and bought them last weekend. So yeah, that's about the extent of my supplement influence on my family. I've sent my brother some proteins over the years, and he's really liked them. So yeah.
So, first of all, Almond Bliss, that I want to try that.
Yeah.
Almond Bliss Vegagen. But right, so what he's doing here is, so he's using organic pea protein and brown rice protein. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you 25.1 So that's going to give you 20 grams. So 20 grams protein total in a scoop, which is the same as his whey protein.
Mm-hmm.
But so he's adding leucine, isoleucine, and valine from Instaminos, vegan fermented, and you're getting about a gram from the 3 of those. So it's kind of one of those. I think we've seen some other companies do that. They shore up the knowing that the vegan style is not going to be as strong in certain areas, and they have their own benefits. But I like it. I think not surprising if you're going to delve into this part of it. I always tell people, they're like, well, it's just some of the products that Ben makes are some areas, like when people ask me about, oh, can you recommend a nutrient partitioning agent or something along those lines. I'm like, well, if I'm gonna delve into a category maybe that I'm not 100% sure about, I'll go company first, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have something like a vegan protein, which I'm not like I'm against it, but it's just not something, because I've always wanted to try to use a vegan protein for an extended period of time, just because I've been using whey protein for so freaking long.
Yeah.
Just to see, but there's just really never been. I don't want to say there's no options out there, because there's like Nutrex and stuff like that makes a really good flavored one, but maybe. But damn it, too many good whey proteins keep coming out, so it's like I can't switch for an extended period of time. But I would really like to give it. I would like to give it a good run.
Yeah, I mean, do I think you're going to notice anything substantial difference-wise as long as you're hitting total daily protein each day? No, I don't. I mean, I know there was that study that got published October, November of last year that I covered on the site, saying that even when they matched up the total protein content, the amino acid profile content, and the leucine content of plant blends compared to a whey protein isolate, it still didn't stimulate, protein synthesis in the body as long
right, I was
or
gonna
as
say,
powerfully.
I remember you talking about that.
So,
I was going to ask you.
I mean, yeah, you can make it replicate whey all you want to, but there's still some other kind of factors that researchers are still trying to figure out what the hell, why isn't it working as effectively? But in the grand scheme of things, over 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of hitting your protein goals every day, training hard every day, are you going to notice a difference? I doubt it.
Right. I agree. So, I like the approach of, because I'm sure, I mean, he would say the same thing. Ben would say the same thing. It's like, look, we're going to try to get as close to, the real thing as possible.
Yeah.
And then, you got to make it taste good. And he did. I do remember him telling me, he's like, man, because I don't think he's like a real big, he's like, I'll still use whey protein. Like he's making this, obviously there's a huge market for this. And
correct.
One thing I'll say about Ben is there's definitely times where he'll make a product just because he sees other people doing it and doesn't like what they're doing. He'll be like, I won't say it on this podcast, but there's been a couple of products that I know he's made just to give a middle finger to other companies. Yeah. So anyway, I know, but he said this almond Bliss flavor. I remember him saying this now. He's like, dude, it might be better than like the Protogen flavors that he has. So
impressive.
Yeah. Impressive. I'm hoping maybe some samples sneak their way this way. Hopefully.
If Ben listens to the podcast, hint, hint, wing, wing for Justin.
He doesn't.
Yeah, no, he's too busy making products and giving middle fingers to the industry.
That's true. One other product, I think I can talk about this, but one that I think you'll be interested in is, so Alpha Lion sent me their superhuman gut formula.
Yeah, I saw that drop on Stack the other day.
Yeah, so did they actually put the formula up there?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I know that they had sent it to me a little while back, and they were like, well, we can't talk about it just yet. So, but it's got the tributylserine, the core biome that Compound Solutions is not providing. Mm-hmm. So Compound Solutions gave me some core biome a while ago to test, and now this product has it in there. So I've been testing out the superhuman gut, and this is one of those ones I think Jordan would be a really good person to have on this podcast.
I reached out to him a couple weeks ago to get him on, and he said they were slammed with trying to get some things out the door, so might be time to reconvene on that and see if he's because he's based in Australia. Is he based in Australia, or is he
is in Colombia?
Colombia, okay.
He's from Australia, though.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He's Australian.
Okay.
He's in Colombia. I can't really. I've gained so much respect for them as a company, not just with their formulas, like their products are very good. They do a lot of testing and stuff like that. But there was something that I posted about in the Supplement Snoop group that got a lot of feedback. But they do just some amazing things with like charity work, and they're in like the Vitamin Angels program. Mm-hmm. There's they like to make cool stuff, and they have some really like hilarious like off the wall marketing and stuff like that. But they also have sort of like a bigger purpose with what they do, which is something that and if you've ever really talked to Jordan or met Jordan, he's just like one of the like class people that you'll meet in this industry. So he'd be a good one. I'd like to hear their story a little bit more too, because he's not a real big, spotlight kind of guy. But what they're doing with their company, it seems like to me is, they killed the game with the pre-workouts, the superhumans and stuff like that. But always in the background, it's almost like an inspired thing where this is kind of like what he really cares about. They're actually working on a couple other products he told me about that are similar vein, where we're going to try to tackle general health. And they're the type that they've been working on it, kind of before it was kind of cool. So he would be a good one, I think people would really, because I think they're the type of brand where if you look at the superhuman stuff, you might have one opinion of them, but when you really talk to them and learn more about them, it's really kind of eye-opening.
Yeah. Cool. So, I'll have to reach out to them and ping them again. I know trying to get him on the podcast. I'm trying to get Michael from Glaxon on the podcast. So I've got feelers out to him to see when because I know they're just as busy as the superhuman guys are. So it's
two companies that are really killing it right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you tried the gut, or you just saw the formula of it?
Yeah, I have it. I've been trying it. So this one is, you take one, it's a 3 capsule serving. Mm-hmm. And you take one cap at a time. It's sort of split dosing. The funny thing is like what I noticed, and Gerhard from Fitness Informant just got his in. It smells like, like the banana chips, like the dehydrated, like banana. Yeah. This is exactly what this smells like. I opened up the cap. I was like, what the hell is that smell?
It's a whopping dose of it. So for the listeners out there that may not have the profile in front of them, we've got 1,000 milligrams of tributylserine, which is the core biome that Justin was just talking about, the new ingredient from Compound Solutions, which it's 30% yield. So you're going to get 300 milligrams of tributylserine. You'll get 100 milligrams of digizyme, which is a complex that's been used in a few protein powders that I've seen as of late. So we've got alpha amylase, protease, lipase, cellulase, and lactase. You've got 100 milligrams of lactospore, which is a probiotic. I've seen SteelFit use that in one of their products. I believe it's in their greens formula, their Steel Greens formula. Pepsin GI, which is going to be a zinc complex. And then you've got 75 milligrams of estrogen, which that's the largest dose of estrogen I think I've seen anywhere. Usually it's 25 or 50.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things. And this is, I personally think this is cool because I've been sort of on an island a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't like this. Everyone tells people to take probiotics.
Right.
And it's not that probiotics are bad or they can't be helpful, but I feel like it's kind of one of those, it's really has gone into territory. And this is for people outside of the inner circle of these conversations, because we all kind of understand this, but there's a lot of people that they're overweight, this and that, and now we're convincing them that it's their gut health this entire time, which sure, that could be part of it, but that's probably not why, that taking a gut health product is not going to fix the fact that you can't control what you eat.
Correct.
And things like that. So I've been sort of like trying to put the brakes on this probiotic thing, because taking a lot of probiotics too, when you don't necessarily need to, can create some issues. And it's like, well, it's not really completely understood. So I'm not against it. Just like, can we just like chill for a second and
Yeah.
and slow down? Because can we at least talk about how this stuff? Because probiotics, we know. I mean, the way it's going to be stored, and you like take like a fish oil or something like that. We know Carlson's has that process locked down.
Yeah.
But if you take it out of that process, like what's the manufacturing process? It's how's this stuff being taken care of? Are we really getting probiotics? Because that's not a simple thing to just take probiotics and then put them into your. It's
Correct.
I'm just going like, whoa, like, please, everyone, can we just stop and
Yeah.
have a conversation about this, like, real quick? So, what I was kind of, what's cool to see is, um, rather than just stopping at these cheap, what I think are just sort of throwing probiotics at a problem, we're seeing companies kind of like this. We're like, okay, we can make this better. Like,
Hmm.
we can improve gut health. We know is important. How can we make this whole process better? So that's what I kind of like to see, because I don't want to see us ever, like, as an industry, just go, oh well, we figured out probiotics. Now everyone come rush buy my shit, you know, like my GNC brand of probiotics. It's like, well,
Yeah.
let's not stop there. I feel like if we're gonna really take on gut health, let's try and make a better product from it. So that's
Correct.
just my
And
that's
it's
just my soapbox.
and our understanding of the human gut microbiome is still in its
Right.
infantile stages. We are barely scratching the surface. It's infinitesimal how much we know about it compared to what's still left to be discovered. Um, and if you want to follow somebody that's really good and has her PhD basically in gut health, is go look up Gabrielle Fundero with Renaissance Periodization. She knows all about gut health. Was part of a literature review on probiotic supplementation and endurance athletes that I got published late 2019, I believe.
Mm.
So go follow her. Check out wherever she is or the people at Renaissance Periodization. They do great work over there. But even she said that it's highly individualistic, which strain specific. What previous conditions do you have? What's your diet like? What GI issues have you dealt with in the past? What are you currently dealing with? What are stress levels? It's just giving everybody a blanket probiotic isn't going to do much of anything for them. It may help, but at the same time, your body could just be shitting out most of it.
Right. And then
So
you think that, and that's kind of, I've it makes me cringe, and I brought this up a couple of times this week where someone had asked me about thyroid products, and I was like, it makes me cringe, because it's not that, a lot of these products are developed for people that are on PEDs, they're in very compromised situations and stuff like that. I was like, your thyroid's like a really tightly regulated,
yeah,
kind of balance in the body for a normal human being. And now all of a sudden, we're telling people essentially with marketing that the reason why you're overweight is your gut health or your thyroid or something like that. And it's
right,
just like, I was like, we can do better than this, kind of thing. So sometimes I'm just like, I'm not saying that they're bad
right,
or wrong or don't work. It's just like, can we just slow the fuck down for a second?
yeah,
Because I'm pretty sure, when I remember first doing research into probiotics, I was like, look, I know I'm not scientifically, trained, and I didn't get my PhD in this. I was like, but this doesn't. I don't really see, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't. So how could I go and tell someone? I was like, who the fuck are all these people? Are all these people that far beyond where I'm at that they're able to tell people that this is gonna? I was like, but then the more you read, and like what you were just saying, people that have studied this their whole lives are going, well, we're still getting there, with it. So
yeah,
it's like, well, so wait a minute. So you're telling me that this supplement company has the answer, and here's the answer to all your problems?
yeah,
I don't want to see us go down that road with gut health products.
correct.
Although I think it's a big deal. So let's not half-ass it, kind of thing.
Exactly, and
That's
that's what there was a bull rush to release all kinds of digestive enzyme and probiotics last year and in 2018, and we are far from understanding what the ideal probiotic supplement is, if there even is such a thing.
especially when we can't seem to agree that a healthy, balanced diet is apparently not the cool thing to do. So
Right. You need
now you're
something
chasing your
extreme,
tail.
or you got to avoid all the anti-nutrients that the keto, carnivore, and paleo fearmongers are out there telling you to avoid.
Anyway, so that's my gut health spiel. I think that we actually was good. We touched on a lot of companies I think this week that I think are really positive for the
Hmm.
industry.
Absolutely.
I love what Arms Race does, especially being the fact that they're a GNC brand that will it just keeps you from doing right certain things.
Yeah.
But they prove that you can make some. I hope that GNC uh, customers, nothing, no offense to them, but I just hope that they can appreciate like how cool Clarity and Stabilize are. Those
Agreed.
are really cool formulas, and Alpha Line does some really cool things. Neuratech's doing some fun stuff. Morphogen's doing some fun stuff. So
Yep.
there's some good stuff going on out there.
Absolutely, man. And on a closing note, it's we'd like to wish a speedy recovery, and thoughts and prayers are with the mountain dog John Meadows, who suffered a heart attack earlier this week. One of the clots is been dissolved, and the other one, I believe, is in the process of being dissolved. So we love you, John. You're doing great things in the industry. You're a very good guy, and we hope for a speedy recovery for you soon, my man.
Well said, man. I've said this a lot of times lately, but and I know we've even mentioned it on the podcast here before. I talk to a lot of people every day, and there's just so much animosity and venom and stuff towards each other in this industry. And I was like, man, I've talked to a million people in this industry, and I've never heard someone say anything negative about John Meadows, and he's got to be the only person that I've personally never heard something negative about. And if you probably have said, if there has been someone that says something negative about him, I'm sure it's that person's fault. So I
Exactly.
totally agree, man. It's you hate to see it. He's never been, and we haven't talked that often, but he's just always been um, nothing but just beyond supportive and nice, to me. So definitely, he's definitely a force we need, in this industry. So speedy recovery for sure.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. Well, then I'll let you get on with your day. You have a great night, and thank you as always for your time.
All right, dog. Talk
All right.
soon.